Welcome to week 2 in our series of Meant to Be. I'm really excited about the message tonight. Looking back, Josh did an awesome job last week, kind of setting the foundation, helping us understand that staying close to Jesus makes every relationship better, right? And that's the foundation. That's where we need to start at, is understanding that staying close to Jesus makes every relationship better. And we kind of saw that whole triangle thing where he had a couple leaders and kind of he was up here, and as they went closer to Jesus, right, they got closer to each other as well. Now, tonight I want to do something a little bit different than kind of normal message that I do with you guys. I want to share with you some really great information on dating and relationships that we're going to get into, that there's going to be a lot of stuff that I think you're going to really enjoy that'll be helpful. But I don't just want to throw a bunch of information at you. I want to share with you some of my story and some of my failures and successes and kind of go, I want you to see some of that as well. You see, before I met Christiana, I dated 3 other girls, Kim, Ashley, and Ashley, okay? Now, the 2 Ashleys, their names were spelled different, okay, so it was all right. But they were all at very different stages of my life, and they were different. Each relationship was different. And as I was preparing this message, I couldn't help but see just how many mistakes that I had made in these areas, and some of my successes, but a lot of mistakes there. And so let's start at the beginning. And at the beginning is Kim. And Kim was like my best friend at church and youth group. And you've heard some of this story before if you've been with us for a while, where, if I'm being honest, I didn't have a ton of self-confidence until I was probably like 11th or 12th grade, right? So middle school, freckle-faced Mac wasn't exactly the most self-confident guy. And so really all I could do is kind of stare at her across the Kids Rock room as I'm running sound and she's helping out and think, man, I really wish that girl would be my girlfriend, but that's not gonna happen, right? I don't know, maybe you've never been there? Okay, just me, all right. Well, eventually, I was 15, I was 16, and decided to kind of like take this leap and risk this friendship that we had built for years and years and years. And we did, and we jumped into this boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. And let me tell you, man, I was in love. This was my first love. And I've told you before, it was before this, so we had a composition book, and we would pass it back and forth on Sundays and Wednesdays and write notes to each other, and I would sneak and stay up on the phone late at night with a corded phone in my room. You don't even know what a corded phone is, but I had a black cord on the phone so that when my mom walked in at 10 o'clock at night, I could just tuck it, and she couldn't see the cord running up the bed because it was black, not white. Some little pro hacks there, but you guys it doesn't matter anymore, so I can tell you that because you don't have corded phones. But this was the situation, and man, as a 16-year-old, I was 100% sure that I was going to marry Kim. I thought for sure we were the exception to the rule of high school relationships that don't last. But newsflash, we weren't. Christiana's name is not Kim, so you might have figured that out by now. But man, that relationship didn't last, and my heart was broken as a 16-year-old. But life kept moving along, and during my senior year of high school, I noticed this 11th grade girl named Ashley. And I was like, hey. And now Ashley was different. You see, this was a girl that was at my public high school that didn't necessarily call herself a follower of Christ, didn't really go to church or anything like that. Now, she wasn't some terrible person. She was still, this pretty girl that was smart and athletic and funny, but it wasn't somebody that I was going to church with, right? And so it was a very different relationship. She had a nice family, and for whatever reason, she said yes to me. So, awesome. So here I am in my senior year, dating this girl at school that doesn't really know Jesus. But I thought that it was okay at the time because this senior year, you see, I was just dating for fun. That, in fact, my whole senior year was really just about fun. There wasn't purpose or intentionality here. You see, I knew that next year I'd be heading off to a Christian college, and I was going to be pursuing a degree in youth ministry. And I knew that that's what God had called me to, but I just kind of decided for whatever reason my senior year was just going to be all about me. And next year, I'd jump into that purpose, and I would continue there. But this year, you know what? And so I'm just dating without purpose. It's just for fun. But honestly, I really don't remember that much about that relationship, except sitting in my car before school in the parking lot, get to school, and then just waiting in my car for her to show up so that way I could see her in the morning and we could, hold hands and walk to class together. And, I may or may not have been singing love songs in my car waiting for her to show up. Listen, my memory's foggy, so maybe, I don't know, okay? But really, that's about it. I'm like, how long did we date for? Somewhere between probably 3 and 6 months. I don't even remember, right? But ultimately, the breakup was different than it was with Kim, but Ashley and I broke up as well. And life continued moving forward, and I went off to college and began living with purpose again. And in fact, I said, okay, God, I want to commit my freshman year to you, and I'm not going to date anybody my freshman year of college because I want to get just focused back on you and just make that commitment to you. And that's exactly what I did. Now, before we jump into everything tonight, here's what I want to say to you. It's important to understand where your parents stand on this matter, okay? We're going to talk about a lot of things. It's critical to understand where your parents stand on this matter, because if your parents say no, then that should be the end of it right there, okay? As a follower of Christ, we should be more concerned about honesty and about respecting our parents than we are about some relationship with a boy or a girl, okay? And so if your parents go, hey, you're not allowed to date right now, that should be the end of it. If you're sitting here and you go, I call myself a follower of Christ, that should be it. Now, the rules in my house were a little bit fuzzy. I can remember that, as a middle schooler, I was not going to be allowed to date, and it probably just saved me from heartache. I don't know who would have said yes to me as a middle schooler anyway, so it's probably a good thing. But I can remember as a high schooler, my parents, they probably let me date because Kim was this girl in church and everything, but there were still some very, very clear guidelines and rules for the relationship and all of that. And my parents knew her parents and, everybody was in the church, everything like that. And so as I kind of look back, I think dating as a teenager can definitely be a bad thing, okay? But it can also sometimes be a good thing. What? Surprise! Because you're probably sitting here thinking okay, what's this guy gonna do? Just go through 10 reasons why teenagers shouldn't date? Some of you have already written off this series and you come in, you're like, can we just get through this because I don't want to listen to some other church guy tell me why I'm not allowed to date, why I shouldn't date, all of these things, right? Well, listen, tonight I want to talk to you about so much more than 10 reasons you shouldn't date, okay? So please, don't tune this out. Sit up, take notes, stay locked in for the next few minutes where I promise you are going to walk away with some information, with some tips, with some stuff that you go, man, that was good. That I see what the Bible, where the wisdom comes from here of what's going on, that will be very applicable to your lives over the next few years in middle school and in high school. So let's pray. God, would you help us tonight? Help us to look at your word and see what you want to say to us about such a big topic in our lives and in our culture. All of these students can feel pressure every day in the halls of their school, on social media, maybe even in their own family. But I pray that you would help us right now to have a clear mind. Help them to be locked into what you would want to say to them tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. So let me start off reading you guys a passage of scripture that I find really helpful when trying to navigate this subject. So like we said last week, the Bible doesn't address dating specifically, right? But it does give us all sorts of wisdom and instruction that we can and should apply to it. So 1 Corinthians 10, 23 to 24, it says this: "You say, I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. You say, I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is beneficial. Don't be concerned for your own good, but for the good of others." So Paul is challenging believers to make choices that honor God and others, where these believers have found this newfound freedom, where their life is no longer about all of these really strict rules. Because the Bible and what Jesus did on the cross said you have this new freedom and you have this grace and you have forgiveness. And then you go, awesome, I'm allowed to do anything. And he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. That doesn't mean everything is good. Whoa, whoa, that doesn't mean everything is beneficial. And so we have these things. We still walk in this same exact situation with a lot of stuff in life where we go, man, I'm allowed to do this. The Bible doesn't say that this is a sin. But Paul's going, no, you're right. Jesus doesn't say that this is a sin, but he is asking the question, are you sure that that's best for you? Are you sure that that's good for you? And he's asking that question and letting this church at Corinth know, like, hey, I need you to slow down a minute here and just ask this question. And so I think dating falls into the same category as the things that Paul was talking about here. It's not all bad. It's not all good. It's how we do it that makes the difference. So how might dating be one of these things that Paul was talking about that's technically allowed, right? Jesus doesn't come out and go, listen, dating as a teenager is a sin, okay? Don't do it. Like, we don't have anything like that, right? So we go, okay, there's not, now, time out. Once again, if your parents say no and you choose anyway, well, now you have walked into sin because now you're being disobedient. Now you're not honoring your mother and your father. Now you're maybe sneaking and lying about it, things like that. So it's important, right, to go back to that first phrase of understanding where you're at, honoring your mother and father, respecting them, and being honest, okay? But we go, all right, technically allowed, but maybe not always good. Well, so what are some examples? What are you talking about here? So maybe you're allowed to date, but you know dating isn't good for you right now. Maybe you came to that conclusion last week after the message and realized, ooh, I know that my parents are cool with this. Maybe I've even had 3 other boyfriends or girlfriends, but you know what? I realized dating's not the best thing for me right now. Or maybe you're even dating someone right now, but they don't treat you with the respect that you deserve. You go, maybe that's not the best thing. Or maybe you're dating someone, but you know it's more about what you get from the relationship than your love for the other person. You see, in all of these situations, in all of these cases, dating may not be wrong, but is it right? Is it helpful? Is it beneficial or good for you? That's a big question. It may not be wrong. There's a very big difference between wrong and is this helpful? Is it good for me? Is it beneficial right now? You see, people date for different reasons, and I look back at my relationships and I can see the different reasons that I was dating at that time, at those times. And, sure, maybe having fun and getting to know people is one benefit to dating, right? Like, obviously you want to have fun. If you go on a date and there's zero fun, well, that was terrible. Nobody wants to do that, right? Like, hey, will you go out with me? Like, okay, awesome. Let's just go have a really terrible time and no fun, okay? Like, of course we want it to be fun, but is that the purpose? And so really, the purpose of dating is to find a partner, right? It's to find that partner. And so I see dating in these 3 steps of casual dating, exclusive dating, and ultimately marriage. All right, and so first you have this casual dating, where it's this phase of dating where you're open to talking and spending time with people that you might be interested in. And honestly, if you guys actually sit back and are honest with yourselves, you might be doing some casual dating just right on this device, where you're texting or continuing, like, you've got DMs back and forth with a person every single day. Like, you're just casually getting to know someone better. You're like, whoa, hold up, that's just my friend. Okay, maybe it is. Okay, maybe it is. But you know what's in your heart. You know that you're like, oh, that's just my friend. Like, yeah, but she's really cute, and I really wish that she was my girlfriend. Okay, well, that's what I'm saying, right? Then you may be casually dating and not even realize that yet. I think that a lot of times we kind of fall into that situation. You're just trying to get to know these people a little bit better, right? Now, the Bible doesn't say anything specific about this, but I want us to look at this passage in Psalms 139, 13 to 14, and here's what it says. For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. Why do we look at that one? Why do I look at that? Because you need to understand who you are. You need to understand who God says you are, that God created you uniquely. He knows exactly who he created you to be. But if we're honest, we're still figuring that out. You're still figuring that out, right? Whenever you decide to start casually dating, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind that, man, God knows exactly who he created you to be. You're still figuring some of that out. So then we go on to exclusive dating, right? The phase where you've decided that one of those people that you were interested in has potential. And in this phase, you're looking to see if this person is really someone that you could see yourself partnering with for the rest of life. And you might ask yourself questions like, does this person share my love for Jesus? Or will we help each other grow in our faith? Or can I see us growing together for a lifetime? And if you can, then ultimately that's leading us to marriage, that next step there. Now, you might be thinking, like, whoa, slow down, bro. Like, I'm way too young to be thinking about this. That's exactly what I want you to consider. That's exactly the point that I want you to think about. You might think that you're too young for marriage, but the purpose of dating is to lead toward marriage. Marriage is where it all leads. So if you're going to date, you need to do that with marriage in mind. You're like, okay, that's kind of weird. Listen, this is one of the areas where I messed up in my relationships. You see, with Kim, when I was 15 or 16, listen, we were dating with purpose. We actually talked a lot about marriage. Man, I was so in love, and we would write those notes, and we would talk about, how many kids do you want to have, and or would cats or dogs, or man, I really like this kind of house, or where should we live? And there was this purpose where we really, I really thought like we were gonna get married. So I was dating with purpose, but I was way too young to be dating with purpose like that. It had that purpose. It wasn't just like this, whatever, it's kind of fun. But I was just way too young to be, I didn't know what I was really saying and thinking and going through all of that. And then on the other side, with this relationship with Ashley, the purpose of our relationship wasn't leading toward marriage. It was to have fun. And honestly, it was to make myself feel better about myself, because now I've got this trophy that's walking with me through the halls of school. Because now I've got some validation that, okay, maybe I'm not the worst looking guy at school. Maybe I actually am a little bit funny, or maybe I actually do have some athletic skills or something like that, because this girl has validated me by saying, sure, I'll be your boyfriend. And this girl is pretty and smart and athletic, and other guys look at her and go, wow, that's awesome. And so if she's with me, then I'm going, yeah, that's right. She's with me. Check me out. I've got to be something good if she's saying that she's with me. And man, it got real when I look back and I go, that was more about me than it was anything else. It was more about me trying to validate myself and feel good about myself, that I've got some trophy walking with me through the halls of school. So you may be asking yourself the question in this moment of going, okay, so I know what you said a minute ago, but then you started talking more and you're like, so can I date? Like, what are you trying to say tonight? Like, can I date even if I'm not ready to get married? Like, can I date if I'm not ready to get married? Yes, okay, yes, but it's up to you to answer the question that we asked a minute ago. Is it good for you? It's up for you to answer that question. If you want to be mature enough to be in a relationship, then you need to be mature enough to answer that question for yourself. Not to have somebody else answer that question for you, but for you to sit back and to think and to process and to work through that and to even maybe ask some people that you trust, not just your friends, but older people, and go, is this good for me? It may be allowed, but it may not be beneficial. Well, here's what I want to do for a minute. If you decide to date, I want to give you some tips here, right? So if you decide, all right, you know what? I'm going to jump in. I want to date this girl. I want to date this guy. Here's some tips, okay? Here's some things that I want you to understand. One, you need to focus on building your relationship. What does that mean? You see, when you're dating someone, keep that goal in mind. Sure, you want to have fun. Like I said, everybody wants to have fun, right? But also, you're also trying to determine if this person you like will actually be a good partner. So you date in ways that intentionally build your relationship. What does that mean? Well, if most of your time spent together is spent staring at a screen, not talking, and being physical, you're not building the relationship, okay? So when I look back, this is an area where Christiana and I got it right, where I had learned and I got it right here. And why do I say that? Because I can remember very clearly a very awkward conversation that we had right as we began to date. I can remember being in my car, driving on A1A, which is this road along kind of like the ocean down in Florida, after we kind of had this date. And in fact, I was thinking about it earlier. Today, February 12th, might actually be the anniversary of this specific date in this conversation back in 2006. And I looked at her and I said, It's all good. So I look at her. She's in the car. We're riding together. We just had kind of an awesome date. And I look at her and I said, hey, I need you to know something. I'm not going to kiss you for a while. Right? You're like, what is wrong with you? You said that? Like, no wonder you remember. That's the most awkward thing. So we're riding in the car, and I said, listen, it's not that I don't want to kiss you, but I want to develop this relationship. I want to get to know you before this relationship gets physical in any way like that. And so, no, it's not that I don't want to, but I want to make sure that we continue to get to know each other and to build this relationship. And the funny thing is, like, I was her first boyfriend, and so she's like thinking, like, you better not kiss me. Like, what are you even talking about? But if I wouldn't have said that, every date, every time we were together, there would have been this, is he going to kiss me? Am I going to kiss her? What are we going to do? And I just kind of eliminated all of that by taking that pressure off and just being honest and going, listen, I'm not going to kiss you for a while because I want to focus and I want to build our relationship. I don't want it to get sidetracked and focused on just the physical, okay? And that was something that I learned over those years and something that we did well there. And then the next tip I want to give you guys is to date in groups. If you want to date, but you don't want to get sucked into a physical relationship or an overly serious relationship too soon, that's great and that's wise. Date in groups. This is another area where Christy and I succeeded, where you see during the time that we were getting to know each other, We were constantly hanging out. Every weekend, we were hanging out with the youth leadership team of the church that we were involved in. And so every weekend, it was like, hey, what's this group of people doing? And we just had this friend group that was constantly, we were hanging out all together 3-4 times a week probably. And so I got to know her during that season. And then when we officially started dating, it wasn't just like, all right, peace out all y'all, Christy and I are going over here. Like, don't call me, don't text me. Like, we're doing our own thing. Good luck in life. Like, we continue to hang out with our friends and to have fun. But if I were to ask you right now, how many of you have had a friend that disappeared from your life because they got into a relationship? I would say probably at least 80% of hands would go up, if not more. So you've seen it, you've been there. Maybe you've been that person. And that's where you go, man, date in groups, okay? Have fun with your friends. The next thing is to set good boundaries. Listen, if you wait until you're alone to decide where your boundaries are at, it's already too late. It's already too late. This is where, maybe there's an awkward conversation, okay? Much better than the other alternative. Set physical boundaries. Set emotional boundaries. Guard your heart. Remember, God created you carefully, wonderfully. Treat your heart and yourself with respect and love. Next, date a Jesus follower, right? Dating a Jesus follower. If you're committed to following Jesus, date someone who shares that commitment. It's a big deal. It's not about following some religious rule. Sometimes in church, we kind of try to go against this. Like, why is that? Like, it's not about these religious rules. It's about so much more than that. It's about aligning yourself with someone who shares your goals and values and beliefs that are most important to you. And so at one relationship in my life, that was not the case. But with Christiana, it was. I knew that she encouraged me and challenged me and was beneficial to my walk with Christ. And finally, date with purpose, right? As you date, don't date blindly. Don't just jump in and date blindly. Seek wisdom and counsel. Be honest with yourself and others. This is something that I really respected from her, because as I pursued her and asked her, she didn't just jump in blindly, which I know is hard to believe, because when you look at this, you would think everybody would just jump in blindly to that partnership, right? But she was slow, and I can remember her having deep conversations like with the other pastor at the church and with some other people in her life and some close friends, and just going, help me to make the best choice here. You see, the Bible gives lots of general guidance about the type of person that you should be looking for, right? But there's another specific passage that I want to look at that kind of talks about this that I just mentioned briefly, and it's 2 Corinthians 6:14-15. And here's what it says. Don't team up with those who are unbelievers. How can righteousness be a partner with wickedness? How can light live with darkness? What harmony can there be between Christ and the devil? How can a believer be a partner with an unbeliever? Man, those are some pretty harsh and intense words from Paul, right? And if you're a Jesus follower, Paul is simply saying, don't team up with someone who doesn't believe like you. It's that simple. If you're dating with purpose, that makes sense. When you're like me in senior year and you're just like, whatever, I'm just dating for fun, it's cool, then you go, oh, what's the big deal? But when we're dating for purpose, we're looking for that partner, we go, man, some of the things that are most valuable to me, my core beliefs and values, why would I ever want to tie myself together with somebody that doesn't line up with those same things? Now, you may be thinking, that's pretty harsh. But you need to understand, this isn't suggesting that you judge or ignore or feel superior to somebody who doesn't believe. He's just saying, don't team up. Don't partner with them or tie yourself to them. It's never more important than in these dating relationships. Like, dating is already really complicated and challenging, even when you're with somebody that's like-minded. It's nearly impossible when you're not. Now, you may be thinking like, well, yeah, but there's this really cute guy or really cute girl that I think that I could help them get to know Jesus. I think that I could help them, come to a faith in Jesus. And you need to understand, it hardly works. It hardly works. But here, think about this, right? If they started coming to church with you, how could you be sure that their interest in God was authentic, okay? So let's do this for a second, okay? Take yourself out of the church scene. Put yourself in the position of somebody that's never gone to church in your life, and you're sitting in public school, right? And you see that guy or that girl, and you're like, man, they are awesome. Super cute. I really want to go out with them. And so you get up the nerve, and you go and you approach them. You're like, hey, would you go out with me? And they're like, yeah, but you got to come to church with me on Sundays and Wednesday nights. Okay, how many of us are saying no to that? Like, this person that you really like, that's really beautiful or super cute or awesome, they go like, oh, well, you got to come hang out with me on a Wednesday night. Okay, I get to hang out with you? Sure. Some random dude's going to talk at me for 20 minutes? Whatever. Can I hold your hand while we're there? Can we have some fun? Cool. Sign me up, right? Like, if we put ourselves in their shoes, we're saying yes. So then how do I know that their interest in God has anything to do with God and isn't just like, well, I'll do whatever you say. Like, if you want to be in a relationship with me, sure, I'll go to some church or youth group or whatever. What about if you date and then break up? How then do they handle this relationship with God and what they've learned? And that can be really tough. Finally, let me just ask you this. Look at this on the screen. If your motive is to truly introduce them to Jesus, why couldn't you do that as a friend? Right? Like, if you want to go, well, I think I could really get them to come to church and to know Jesus. Okay. So why can't you do that as a friend? Why can't you encourage them as a friend? Man, I get it. I understand the temptation to date for fun and to not think about any of this because I was there. I lived it. But I also know that it's messy. And since the goal of dating is to lead toward marriage, is that really something that you would risk, dating somebody that doesn't believe the same things as you, that doesn't follow Christ? It's really important to understand who you're looking for and not just go, she's really cute, he's really athletic, and, a dreamboat, right? It's important to understand more than that. To set high standards for the kind of person that you want to be with. And then keep those standards. Don't settle. Lastly, as the band comes up, it's important to know who you're looking for. But it's even more important to be the kind of person worthy of the person you're looking for. It's even more important to be the kind of person that's worthy of the person you're looking for. You see, if you want the kind of relationship that is meant to be, then you need to be someone that's characterized by these three things. That first, loves God. Like we learned last week, a relationship with Jesus will make any relationship better. Love God with your whole heart, soul, mind, and strength. Run after him. Pursue wisdom and Christ-like living. Be that person that's worthy of the person that you are searching for and running after. Secondly, be someone who loves others. Right? Dating isn't all about you. It's a partnership and a relationship with another person. A person that's made in the image of God, right? That's loved and cherished by him. If you're walking into a relationship focused primarily on what you can get out of it, you shouldn't be in that relationship. Be someone who loves and cares for others. And finally, be someone who loves you. You see, like we talked about several times, God created you uniquely. If you want a healthy relationship with someone else, you need to have a healthy relationship with yourself and the identity that God has given you. If you are insecure, lonely, or unhappy with who you are, a relationship will not fix it. Only you and God can fix it. I mentioned 3 girls that I dated, Kim, Ashley, and Ashley. But I didn't really talk about the second Ashley. You see, the second Ashley, we started dating during that second and third year of college. And in fact, it progressed to the point where I proposed and we got engaged. And we started planning a wedding. And we were checking out venues in Alabama. And I graduated from college and was doing an internship in Georgia, south of Atlanta, at this big church. And had everything sort of mapped out. She had a year of school left and had all of these plans mapped out. And then during that summer, she broke it off. And everything that I had mapped out and planned just blew up in an instant. And I go, God, what is happening right now? And up until this point in my life, this was probably the hardest thing that I've had to walk through, where I am crying out to God and fasting and praying and going, God, what are you doing here? Because she came and said, like, God's leading me, telling me that this isn't right anymore, that we need to break up. And I'm going, what? Like, what? And just completely caught off guard there and trying to figure out what's happening. And so as that relationship ultimately came to a close, I didn't know what I was doing. I ended up moving back to my hometown instead of hanging out around the college area where she was going to be. And that's where I ran into Christiana at my friend's birthday party. But listen, I was in no place at that time to start a relationship with her right then and right there. Because I was lonely. I was unhappy with who I am. I had a lot of stuff to fix between me and God in this season where I was at a place and I needed to fix that between me and God before I just jumped into another relationship. Man, you've seen those people, maybe you've even been that and you know it, where they break up and the next day they're in another relationship, and they break up and the next day they're in another relationship. Because there's this void, this loneliness, this hole, this hurting, this pain. But it's not solved by another relationship or another relationship or another relationship. You see, I had to come to a point where I was healthy in myself, where I was healthy in my relationship with God, where I wasn't just searching for another girlfriend to fill that void and that pain, where I was at a place where I go, God, I'm good with you. And I'm not just searching this out and forcing something. And we continued to get to know each other and to have fun and hang out. And as I came to a healthier place, then we were able to date and have a happily ever after. But you see, if you're not healthy without someone, you won't be healthy with someone. If you're not healthy without someone, you won't be healthy with someone. So often, teenagers think that they are gonna fix it, they're gonna make it better. I've got this kind of tough relationship with my dad, but this guy really likes me, and this guy says that I'm beautiful, and this guy is there for me. And we think they're gonna fix it, they're gonna make it better. Man, I'm begging you guys tonight, God is the one. Trust your heart to him and him alone. He will lead and take care of this for you. Let's pray. God, I thank you so much for your wisdom. I thank you for my beautiful wife and family that I have, that I might have taken a few wrong turns and wondered what was going on sometimes in my life. But you were always faithful. You were always there. And when I was truly at a place content in my relationship with you and not looking for someone else to fill a void or to take away loneliness or to affirm me and say I must be more valuable because I'm able to have this girlfriend, this girl that likes me. God, then you brought along the most incredible person to my life. I pray for each and every one of these students, God, that you would guard their hearts. Wherever they're at, there's some of them in this room that might be in a relationship, that they've been dating someone for the last 3 years. And there's other people in this room that could care less and don't even want to think about this topic. God, would you help us, wherever we're at, to understand your word and your wisdom when it comes to all of this? Seems like every week we come back to just Romans 12:2, not to be conformed to the patterns of this world. There are a lot of patterns in this world that talk about dating. Our culture gives us all these different ways of what dating should look like. God, I pray that everyone in this room would push that to the side and go, God, what do you say? I don't want to be conformed to the patterns of this world. I want you to transform my mind. Help me to understand what it looks like in a way that brings honor and glory to you. Guys, as we close tonight, as the band sings a song, I don't know where this message lands on you. Maybe you need to just worship God for who he has made you to be, even though you're still learning that. Maybe you are wrestling with insecurity and loneliness, depression, anxiety, and you've tried to fill that with another person and it hasn't worked out. Would you just surrender that to God tonight and go, God, would you begin to heal me, to make my heart whole again? Maybe you just want to continue to pray for that future spouse, wherever they're at. And would you pray that God would continue to shape and mold you into the person that's worthy of the person that you want to be with? Father, thank you again for your sacrifice for your Son, for creating us just the way that we are. Help us to all be confident and secure, knowing that we are a child of yours, loved unconditionally by you. In Jesus' name.